Everything really rests on your book. It's your book that's the big performance.
A portfolio is you. That's it. Just you. And if it isn't you, don't show it.
The things that I look for when I see a portfolio is how the person thinks.
First thing I look for is individuality. Terribly important to be an individual, to do what you feel should be right in your portfolio. And when you take this portfolio out, know that many people are going to have diverse opinions. One is going to love something you have, one is going to hate it. You have to feel proper and good about what you have in your portfolio and then stick with it.
I would definitely say that variety is a very important factor.
A portfolio should give a broad range of basically all the skills that the person has.
You have only one chance to make your first impression, and you can't do that over. So that the first piece that you have in your portfolio is kind of critical. It sets the mood.
Well, putting together a portfolio is obviously something that young designers are always very concerned about. I might say old designers are too, but perhaps not as with as much apprehension and concern. But in my own case, what I look for more than anything else, well, I look for two things. One is a sense of intelligence, sort of pervasive sense of intelligence, somehow that underneath all the pieces that I see, there's a kind of sense of how to put things together and how to make things clear. And besides that, when I want to hire somebody young, I look for good hands.
How many pieces should I have in my portfolio?
I will look at the work of a genius for the whole afternoon. But since we don't have that kind of opportunity very often, I would say that most people, especially beginners like yourselves, you would want to have 15 pieces possibly.
My preference is about 20, 25.
You should have just the very best pieces that you do. It shouldn't be more than 15 pieces.
The portfolio should be structured towards the unique situation that you're going into and towards the unique person that you're going to see. When you're going into a design studio, show those pieces that relate to design studio issues. When you're going to an advertising agency, show advertising pieces. I mean, that's not a very complex idea, but my own sense is you should reduce your portfolio to aim it specifically towards the peculiarity of the situation that you're investigating.
Should there be an order to my portfolio?
My suggestion is to put your very best piece first, your next to the best piece last, and hopefully in between there will be equally good. Right? Remember that you really want to hit them very hard when they first open the book and say, wow, this person's dynamite, and end it with that same feeling.
Yes, I think you want to start out with very strong pieces. The first impression is very important, and end with very strong pieces.
How important is craftsmanship?
A person has to be a craftsman. If you're not a craftsman, you lose. You really lose. That's it, in my opinion. Maybe there's some others, people that are looking through portfolios, craftsmanship is not important. Maybe they don't know what craftsmanship is. But all I know is one thing, that when I'm looking at a portfolio, craftsmanship must be the prime.
I think your portfolio should show what you're capable of doing. Touching on one of the most sensitive issues first is the question of mechanicals. Being able to put down what you are able to do. Concept without The ability to put it down is just a vague idea which has to be described in terms like and you know and so forth. And that is not a satisfactory solution to most problems.
We want to see how you handle an assignment, how you come up with a concept, and how you finally execute that concept.
What are designers and art directors looking for?
A few of the things that an art director does look for and knows instinctively when they look at your book. They're looking at your rendering ability, your design ability, your lettering ability, your originality and ideas, the way you think, your neatness, your color sense, and your drawing ability, and not necessarily in that order. If you boil it down to three, it's your ideas, your execution, and your neatness.
But obviously, if you're going to be happy in this business or in any business, you want to do good work and do work that is valid, that has some usefulness, and that also is aesthetically top-level work.
Well, the relationship between what one might call aesthetics and utility is of course, one of the critical issues in design. You have to have principles, one would say design principles, that have to do with certain platonic ideas, certain ideas about form and beauty and truth. At the same time, design has to be useful. It has to work in the world. So again, it's one of those problems where you have to seemingly reconcile opposite ideas, one of pure form and the other of pure usefulness. Every designer I know, in fact, every person I know, comes to some kind of reconciliation of these two ideas and somehow walks that curious line between the two.
How important is typography?
Without typography, that's my bag, typography. Typography, I'm an alphabet designer, a type designer, outside of being a graphic designer, which is all one thing here. But if you are not into typography per se, and you just call yourself a creative designer, keep in mind one thing: without typography, you do not have the printed word.
Typography in this field is extremely important.
There isn't any single skill more important to a designer than typography. Unfortunately, it's very hard to convince younger people, particularly students, that typography is important, basically because it's so unglamorous compared to other activities. But there is nothing that serves a designer, in almost all cases, more than a good, solid understanding of type on one hand and the ability to deal with it imaginatively. I believe very much that if you eliminated all other elements from your range of skills, if you really had strikingly strong typographical understanding, you could find a job almost anywhere.
Typography is, the importance of it cannot be overrated. It is impossible to communicate an idea with pictures only. And the ability to structure your typography in such a way as to make it easy for the person to read it, to make it accessible, to make it interesting, to make them want to finish reading it, is the great challenge today in the face of television and all the other distractions we have.
We are more interested in seeing how you relate typography to the project, because we never sell our services as lettering people or just typographers. We solve problems, and occasionally that problem is best solved with type.
But without typography, you don't have an ad. Typography is the message.
Should I include mechanicals?
Should mechanicals be in your portfolio? Definitely. 2, in the back. I'm a great believer in magic markers. My recommendation is to put some markers in the back.
The pocket in the back, however, really mustn't come off as being a kind of catch-all garbage bin.
Many times people say, well, I've had a job in the summer, whatever. I've done a few printed pieces. I haven't done the layouts. I've done the mechanicals. Or perhaps I have done layouts. But let's say there's been a lot of compromise on them. They don't look too good. My answer to that is, don't put them in.
How should I handle myself during an interview?
Know that besides your talent, an art director is testing you on your confidence, how you think, your poise. My answer to this is, and most important in an interview, is be yourself.
My feeling is, first of all, you ought to be very quiet. If what you have to say is necessary for the person to be able to understand the piece, then you have failed. Of course, the other really big question is one of appearance. I think that probably the simplest way to state it is that you shouldn't be more exciting than your portfolio. You should believe, to overstate it a little bit, you should believe in what you do and how you do it. And while sometimes that can be a little obnoxious, at least it has conviction, which is a very valuable quality in anybody. I think that the ability to communicate to a person that you really are committed and involved is a marvelous quality, which I can't overestimate. I mean, a person who comes in and really wants to do the job is an invaluable person. Even if you have to teach him half of what you want him to do, that commitment is the important thing.
Should I include a resume?
A resume is terribly important. It should really look professional. I'd keep it to 1 page on a good quality stock, white or beige. I'd also recommend that you either use a word processor or a typewriter that has a good typeface. Remember, keep it brief and to the point.
What effect has new technology had on design?
Well, technology always has an effect on aesthetics, but very often it's an effect that's not anticipatable. When change in technology occurred between fresco painting using tempera and oil painting occurred using the medium of oil as a binding agent, the change that occurred was most astonishing because it meant that painting didn't have to occur on a wall. It could be something that could be done in a studio on canvas and therefore transportable, and as a result of that, painters could paint under natural light and observe what they were painting. Well, that produced a total change in the aesthetics of painting. There will be profound changes in aesthetics as a result of the computer and electronics and all the rest of it. It is happening.
I'm interested in motion graphics. What skills do I need?
Description of motion graphics came up in the 1970s or late 60s, 70s, and then developed into the 80s. Basically what it is taking traditional flat graphics and giving them motion to the point that you can do yaw, pitch, and roll moves with simple graphic formations. So anyone that wanted to be a designer in that area should really be well-versed in film, well-versed in topography, and well-versed in illustration. But to be a designer for film, you have to be basically a production designer, a graphic designer, an art director, and most assuredly some sort of a high-caliber artist, someone who's able to really basically either draw, paint, illustrate, something to be able to express themselves with images.
What should I be looking for in my first job?
Looking for the first job is really a very, very critical job, because every job that you get subsequently is built on that first job that you have.
Now, the thing that I'm concerned about is that you find a place where you can do many different things, a place where you have to do many different things. And I think that that tends to be a smaller place, a place where unfortunately you can't hide while you're getting your thing together, but where you really do learn far more in a far shorter period of time than anywhere else.
What I would recommend is that on your first job is you look to find a situation where you're in contact with people who are absolutely first-rate, who know what they're doing, who have experience. It's far more important for you to continue the learning process by observing what occurs in professional life next to somebody who is of good quality than it is to have the opportunity to design things. After all, the learning process continues a good deal longer than the end of school. The first 5 years, it would seem to me, would be basically a continuation of your own education. And that would involve seeking opportunities to be next to those who really create a climate of excellence.